Hey everyone, today we're diving into a heartfelt and emotional story that's bound to resonate with many of you. In Wife Cheated and I'm Somehow Not That Angry, we explore the complex journey of Ethan and Sophia. This couple has faced financial struggles, emotional turmoil, and a devastating betrayal. Yet, amid the pain and uncertainty, there's a surprising sense of resilience and a quest for healing. Join us as we unravel their story, filled with raw emotions, moments of hope, and the challenging path toward forgiveness and rediscovery. Stay tuned and let's delve into this touching narrative together. Ethan stretched his legs under the small dining table, the one that had seen better days, much like their financial situation over the years. The winter sunlight lazily streamed through the sheer curtains, casting a warm glow on the newspaper he had spread out in front of him. Across from him, Sophia hummed softly, her fingers skillfully navigating through the steam rising from her cup of strong coffee. "Another day, huh?" Ethan remarked, his eyes not leaving the employment section. It had been 3 years since he was laid off from the tech company, and although he had picked up odd jobs here and there, nothing had stuck. Sophia, on the other hand, had managed to keep her position at the local coffee shop, a job that brought in just enough to keep them afloat. Sophia nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "Yeah, another day," she echoed, a trace of fatigue lining her voice. Their conversation was a familiar tune, one filled with the undercurrents of resilience and unspoken worries. They had been each other's rock, weathering through bouts of depression, Ethan's during the first year of their marriage, and Sophia's following shortly after when the reality of their financial instability had hit her hard. The past 8 years together had shaped their relationship into something unbreakable, or so Ethan had always believed. They understood each other's silences just as well as they did the words spoken in moments of despair or joy. Yet, something had shifted recently, an undercurrent of change that Ethan couldn't quite put his finger on. Ethan sighed, folding the newspaper and pushing it aside. "It's the same old story. Nothing promising," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. He glanced at Sophia, who was staring into her coffee cup, lost in thought. Sophia looked up, a small smile playing on her lips. "Hey, I saw a flyer at the coffee shop yesterday," she said, breaking the comfortable silence. "There's a dance club starting up at the community center. Thought it might be fun to try out. You know, something different." Ethan looked up, surprised. Dance had never been their thing. It was one of those unexplored adventures that they had laughingly agreed wasn't for them. Content instead with their quiet evenings of Scrabble and the occasional movie night. But the sparkle in Sophia's eyes, one he hadn't seen in a long time, made him pause. "Dance, huh? That sounds interesting," he managed, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. He studied Sophia's face, noticing the lines of fatigue that had etched themselves deeper over the past few years. But now, there was a glimmer of excitement, a hint of the woman he had fallen in love with. Sophia's smile widened. "Yeah, I think it could be good for us. A little change of pace, you know," she said, her voice hopeful. Ethan nodded slowly, the corners of his mouth lifting in a hesitant smile. "Maybe you're right. It could be fun. A little cha-cha-cha to spice things up," he joked, attempting to mimic dance moves, which only earned him a playful swat from Sophia. "You're such a goof," she laughed, her eyes twinkling. For a moment, the weight of their struggles seemed to lift, replaced by the warmth of shared laughter. As they continued their breakfast, the idea of dancing together planted a seed of warmth in Ethan's chest. It was a fleeting thought, one overshadowed by the day-to-day survival and the pressing need to find more stable work. Yet, the thought lingered, a gentle reminder of the days when life was lighter, and their worries were fewer. But as the days turned into weeks, Ethan found excuses to put off the dance club. He blamed it on his schedule, the unexpected job interviews, the repair jobs that cropped up. In truth, he was hesitant, afraid that stepping out of their routine might unravel the fabric they had so carefully woven together. Sophia, however, embraced the opportunity. She attended the first session alone, coming back with flushed cheeks and stories of laughter and clumsy steps. Each class seemed to inject her with renewed energy, a zest for life that had been dimmed by years of routine. Ethan noticed the change, the subtle shifts in her demeanor. She was more animated, her eyes brighter, her laughs freer. And with each dance class she attended, Ethan felt both a growing pride in her newfound joy and an inexplicable twinge of fear. It was a fear of being left behind, of not being part of her world. A world where she danced under bright lights and laughed with people who didn't know the weight of the struggles they had faced together. It was a fear, he realized, that maybe, just maybe, they were not as unbreakable as he had once believed. One evening, as Sophia prepared for another dance class, her excitement palpable, Ethan's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "You should come with me next time," she said, her voice light but insistent. "They're starting a new batch, and it would be fun to do this together. You might actually enjoy it." Ethan hesitated, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. "Maybe," he replied noncommittally. The thought of stepping into a room full of strangers and exposing his two left feet was more than just intimidating, it was terrifying. He had always hated being the center of attention, and the dance floor seemed like a spotlight he couldn't escape. Seeing the slight droop of Sophia's smile at his hesitation, Ethan felt a pang of guilt. She was finding joy in something new, and here he was, holding onto his insecurities like a lifeline. "All right," he finally said, the words feeling like a concession. "I'll give it a try." The first class was exactly as Ethan had feared. The steps felt foreign, the rhythm elusive. While Sophia moved with a grace that surprised even her, Ethan stumbled, his movements awkward and out of sync. He could feel the eyes of the other dancers on him, their well-meaning smiles not enough to ease his embarrassment. Sophia, noticing his discomfort, stayed close, her hand in his reassuring presence. "It's just about having fun," she whispered, trying to guide him through a basic step. "Don't worry about everyone else." But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy, the stark contrast between Sophia's ease and his own clumsiness. The drive home was quiet, the air thick with things left unsaid. Sophia's attempt to lighten the mood felt forced, and Ethan's responses were short, clipped by the embarrassment still hot on his cheeks. As the weeks passed, Sophia continued with her classes, her enthusiasm undampened by Ethan's lack of interest. The distance between them grew, filled with unspoken words and unshared experiences. Ethan found himself retreating further into his shell, his evenings spent more in the garage tinkering with old electronics than with Sophia. Then came the night that changed everything. Sophia came home later than usual, her footsteps hesitant as she entered the house. Ethan was waiting up for her, the silence of the night a heavy cloak around his shoulders. "I need to tell you something," Sophia began, her voice unsteady. Ethan tensed, an icy dread settling in his stomach. "I made a mistake," she confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. "It was stupid, a moment of weakness. I'm so sorry, Ethan." The confession hit Ethan like a physical blow. The details were blurry, something about a new dancer named Tyler and a moment caught in a wave of music and laughter, but the betrayal was clear and sharp. Ethan's reaction was cold, distant. He couldn't bring himself to speak, to ask for the details he wasn't sure he wanted to know. The following days were marked by a chilling silence, each passing moment a brick added to the wall between them. Sophia tried to explain, to apologize, but her words fell on deaf ears. Ethan was lost in a storm of betrayal and hurt, unable to navigate the flood of emotions that threatened to drown them both. As he lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, Ethan wrestled with his feelings. The woman he loved, the partner he had trusted with his deepest fears, had faltered. And now, he wasn't sure if the rhythm of their life could ever find its beat again. The days following Sophia's confession were shrouded in a tense silence that seemed to echo through their home. Ethan found himself moving through the motions, his mind constantly replaying Sophia's words, each iteration slicing through the remnants of trust that had tethered their relationship together. Sophia's presence in the house, once a source of comfort, now felt like an intrusion into Ethan's whirlwind of confusion and hurt. She tried to reach out, her apologies mingling with pleas for forgiveness, but Ethan was encased in his own protective shell, unable to hear her over the roar of his own betrayal. As the initial shock wore off, the silence gave way to long, painful conversations. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table where they had shared countless meals and dreams. Now, it served as the arena for their most challenging dialogue. I never wanted to hurt you, Ethan, Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. It was a moment of foolishness, a lapse in judgment. It didn't mean anything. But it did, Sophia, Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. It meant something to me. It's hard to see past this, to understand why. Sophia reached across the table, her fingers tentatively brushing against his. I know I've broken something precious between us. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness, but I am asking for a chance to rebuild what I've damaged. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and saw the remorse etched deeply in her features. He remembered the years of support they had given each other, the obstacles they had overcome together, and the love that had always been their foundation. Now, he questioned if that foundation was enough to withstand this storm. The following week, a sudden call from the hospital added another layer of urgency to their strained relationship. Ethan's mother, Margaret, had suffered a mild stroke, and he rushed to her side, with Sophia hesitantly in tow. The family emergency served as a stark reminder of the essential bonds and responsibilities that life could throw at them, unpredictable and often harsh. In the sterile white of the hospital room, watching his mother's frail form resting, Ethan felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Sophia, her presence a quiet statement of her commitment to stand by him, even in the shadow of her recent misstep. This gesture, simple yet profound, began to stir something in Ethan. A realization that perhaps true strength in a relationship didn't come from never making mistakes, but from facing them together and emerging stronger on the other side. They spent long hours in the hospital, talking not just about his mother's health but about what had happened between them. It was during these conversations, amidst the beeping of machines and the soft steps of nurses, that Ethan began to see the possibility of a path forward. One evening, as they walked in the dimly lit hospital corridor, Ethan broke the silence. Maybe we can start going to a counselor, work through this with someone who can guide us, he suggested, his voice tentative. Sophia's response was immediate, her relief palpable. Yes, I'd like that. I want to fix this, Ethan. Whatever it takes. As they continued to walk side by side, a silent agreement formed between them, a mutual commitment to face the music, no matter how discordant, and dance through the complexities of their lives together. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick, but perhaps, with time and effort, they could choreograph a new routine. One where trust could be rebuilt and love could flourish once again. Their journey back from the brink was just beginning, but for the first time since the night of the confession, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other, step by hesitant step. Ethan stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his shirt collar for the third time that evening. The room was small but cozy, with a quilted bedspread that Sophia had made in their early years of marriage. A faint smell of lavender, from the sachets Sophia placed in the dresser drawers, filled the air. The walls, adorned with photographs of their travels and family gatherings, seemed to watch over him with a silent judgment. Ethan, are you ready? Sophia's voice called from the hallway, a mix of excitement and anxiety palpable in her tone. Just a minute, Ethan replied, forcing a smile as he straightened his posture. He could hear the soft thud of her footsteps approaching, a rhythm he had grown accustomed to over the years. Sophia appeared in the doorway, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. She was dressed in a simple yet elegant blue dress, the one she wore on their anniversary last year. You look handsome, she said, her voice gentle but filled with an underlying hope. Ethan turned to face her, his own nerves mirrored in her eyes. You look beautiful, as always, he responded, stepping forward to take her hand. They shared a brief, tender moment before heading out the door. The community center was a short drive from their home, nestled in the heart of their quaint Oregon town. As they pulled into the parking lot, Ethan's heart pounded with a mixture of dread and curiosity. The building was modest, with a welcoming sign that read, Dance Club, all levels welcome, in cheerful letters. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. Are you sure about this? He asked, glancing at Sophia as they walked towards the entrance. Sophia squeezed his hand reassuringly. It'll be fun, Ethan. Just relax and enjoy the moment. Inside, the community center buzzed with energy. Couples and singles of all ages filled the large, open room, their laughter and chatter creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. The wooden floor gleamed under the soft lights, and a mirrored wall reflected the vibrant scene. "Welcome," a cheerful voice greeted them as they entered. It was Emily, the dance instructor, a woman in her 40s with an infectious smile and an air of confidence. "I'm so glad you could join us. Just find a spot and we'll get started soon." Ethan and Sophia found a place near the back, hoping to stay somewhat inconspicuous. The music started, a lively tune that immediately set feet tapping. Ethan watched as Emily demonstrated the first steps, her movements fluid and graceful. "All right, everyone, let's start with something simple," Emily called out, her voice carrying easily over the music. "Follow my lead and don't worry if you mess up. We're here to have fun." Ethan tried to focus on Emily's instructions, but his feet felt like they were encased in concrete. He stumbled through the basic steps, his movements awkward and out of sync with the music. Beside him, Sophia moved with surprising ease, her face alight with concentration and joy. "You're doing great," she whispered, her encouragement a balm to his frayed nerves. "Not really," Ethan muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. He glanced around, noticing how effortlessly others seemed to glide across the floor. His self-doubt gnawed at him, threatening to overwhelm the small sparks of enjoyment he had felt. As the class continued, Ethan's frustration grew. Each misstep felt like a glaring failure, each awkward movement a reminder of his inadequacy. The cheerful chatter and laughter around him only amplified his sense of isolation. Sophia noticed his growing discomfort and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Ethan, it's okay. We're here to learn, not to be perfect." He forced a smile, trying to hide the turmoil inside. "I know, I'm just not used to this." The class eventually ended, and as they left the community center, Sophia's enthusiasm remained undimmed. "I think we did pretty well for our first time," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Don't you?" Ethan nodded, though his heart wasn't in it. "Yeah, it was interesting," he replied, the words feeling hollow. Over the next few weeks, Sophia continued to attend the dance classes, her skill and confidence growing with each session. Ethan, however, found excuses to skip the classes, blaming it on his job search and other commitments. He couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy that had taken root during that first class. Sophia, ever supportive, tried to encourage him. "You should come with me tonight," she suggested one evening as they sat on the porch, the sunset casting a golden glow over their quiet street. "It's a new routine, and I think you'll enjoy it." Ethan shook his head, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I've got a lot to do tonight. Maybe next time." Sophia sighed softly, her disappointment evident. "All right, but I really think you'd have fun." As Sophia's involvement in the dance club deepened, Ethan noticed a change in her. She was more animated, her laughter coming more freely. She talked about the friends she was making, the routines she was learning, and the joy she felt in dancing. Her enthusiasm was infectious, but it also served as a stark reminder of the growing distance between them. Ethan spent more and more time in the garage, tinkering with old electronics, a hobby that had once brought him peace. But now, it felt more like an escape, a way to avoid confronting the changes happening in their relationship. One evening, as Ethan was absorbed in his work, he heard the sound of music and laughter coming from the living room. Curious, he walked in to find Sophia practicing her dance moves, a look of pure joy on her face. She noticed him and smiled. "Want to join me?" she asked, extending her hand. Ethan hesitated, the familiar knot of insecurity tightening in his stomach. "Maybe later," he replied, retreating back to the garage. Sophia's smile faltered, but she quickly masked it with a determined expression. "All right, but the offer stands." Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing her to this new world of dance. The more she embraced it, the more he felt left behind. The small insecurities he had always managed to keep at bay were now dancing in the forefront of his mind, whispering doubts he wished he could silence. As the weeks turned into months, the distance between them grew. Sophia's joy in dancing contrasted sharply with Ethan's growing sense of isolation. He felt like an outsider in his own home, watching as his wife blossomed while he remained stuck in the shadows of his own fears. One evening, Sophia came home later than usual, her cheeks flushed from exertion and excitement. "Tonight's class was amazing," she exclaimed, her eyes shining. "We learned a new routine and it was so much fun. You should really come next time, Ethan." Ethan forced a smile, his heart heavy with a mixture of pride and sadness. "I'm glad you're enjoying it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia's smile faded slightly, sensing the undercurrent of his emotions. "Ethan, I wish you'd join me. I miss sharing these moments with you." Ethan looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "I'll think about it," he replied, though deep down, he knew his fears and insecurities would likely keep him from taking that step. As Sophia prepared for bed, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were moving in different directions, and he was powerless to stop it. The thought of losing Sophia to this new world of dance filled him with a sense of dread he couldn't ignore. The days turned into weeks, and Ethan continued to retreat further into himself. He buried himself in job searches and odd jobs, anything to distract from the growing void in his marriage. Meanwhile, Sophia's passion for dance only grew stronger, her evenings filled with the rhythms and melodies that now defined her life. Then came the night that changed everything. Sophia came home later than usual, her footsteps hesitant as she entered the house. Ethan was waiting up for her, the silence of the night a heavy cloak around his shoulders. "I need to tell you something," Sophia began, her voice unsteady. Ethan tensed, an icy dread settling in his stomach. "I made a mistake," she confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. "It was stupid, a moment of weakness. I'm so sorry, Ethan." The confession hit Ethan like a physical blow. The details were blurry, something about a new dancer named Tyler and a moment caught in a wave of music and laughter, but the betrayal was clear and sharp. Ethan's reaction was cold, distant. He couldn't bring himself to speak, to ask for the details he wasn't sure he wanted to know. The following days were marked by a chilling silence, each passing moment a brick added to the wall between them. Sophia tried to explain, to apologize, but her words fell on deaf ears. Ethan was lost in a storm of betrayal and hurt, unable to navigate the flood of emotions that threatened to drown them both. As he lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, Ethan wrestled with his feelings. The woman he loved, the partner he had trusted with his deepest fears, had faltered. And now, he wasn't sure if the rhythm of their life could ever find its beat again. The house was eerily quiet as Ethan sat on the couch, his mind swirling with thoughts he couldn't escape. The room felt colder, more distant than it ever had before. Every corner seemed to whisper the weight of Sophia's confession, a haunting echo that refused to fade. Sophia stood in the doorway of the living room, her face pale and drawn. She clutched the back of a chair, her knuckles white from the pressure. "Ethan, please say something," she implored, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's eyes were fixed on the floor, his thoughts a chaotic jumble of anger, hurt, and confusion. "What do you want me to say, Sophia?" he finally replied, his voice strained. "That it's okay? That we can just move past this like it never happened?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "I don't expect you to just forgive me right away. But we need to talk about it. We need to figure out how to fix this." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Fix this? How do we fix something like this? You betrayed me, Sophia. How am I supposed to trust you again?" Sophia took a tentative step forward. "It was a mistake, Ethan. A terrible mistake. I got caught up in the moment. It didn't mean anything." Ethan's gaze snapped up, his eyes blazing with anger. "Didn't mean anything? It meant something to me, Sophia. It meant everything to me. We built our lives together on trust, and you shattered that." Sophia's shoulders sagged, and she sank into the chair she had been gripping. I know I did. And I hate myself for it. But I love you, Ethan. I want to make this right. I want to work through this." Ethan stared at her, the raw pain in his eyes evident. "I don't know if we can," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can." The days that followed were a blur of tense silences and awkward interactions. They moved around each other like ghosts, the space between them filled with the heavy burden of unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Sophia tried to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed between them, but every attempt was met with Ethan's cold distance. He spent more time away from the house, finding solace in the familiar hum of old electronics in the garage. It was the only place where he felt he could breathe, where the world's chaos could be reduced to wires and circuits. One evening, as Ethan was working on an old radio, he heard the sound of soft sobbing coming from the living room. He put down his tools and walked towards the sound, finding Sophia curled up on the couch, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this, Sophia?" Ethan asked, his voice a mix of frustration and helplessness. "Why are you making this harder than it already is?" Sophia looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Because I love you, Ethan. And I can't stand the thought of losing you. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'm not giving up on us." Ethan felt a pang of guilt mixed with his anger. He knew she was sincere, but the hurt was still too fresh, too raw. "I need time, Sophia. I need to figure out if I can even look at you without seeing him." Sophia nodded, her sobs subsiding into quiet sniffles. "I understand. But please, don't shut me out completely. Let's try to find a way to get through this together." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He knew they couldn't go on like this, living in a state of limbo. "Maybe we should see a counselor," he suggested reluctantly. "Someone who can help us talk through this." Sophia's eyes brightened slightly. "Yes, I'd like that. I think it could really help." The following week, they made an appointment with Dr. Mitchell, a therapist who specialized in marital issues. The office was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the cold tension that had settled over their home. Dr. Mitchell was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a soothing voice that immediately put them at ease. "Welcome, Ethan and Sophia," she said as they settled into the comfortable chairs in her office. "I know this is a difficult time for both of you, but I'm here to help you navigate through it. The first step is to understand what led to this situation and how you both are feeling about it." Ethan and Sophia glanced at each other before Ethan spoke first. "I feel betrayed," he admitted, his voice tight. "I trusted Sophia completely, and now I don't know how to move past this." Sophia nodded, tears welling up again. "I feel terrible for what I did. I don't know why I let it happen. I got caught up in the moment. But I love Ethan and I want to fix our marriage." Dr. Mitchell leaned forward, her expression empathetic. "It's important to acknowledge your feelings, both of you. Betrayal is a deep wound, and it's going to take time and effort to heal. But it's also crucial to understand the underlying issues that might have contributed to this situation. Ethan, you mentioned feeling distant from Sophia, especially after she started the dance classes. Can you tell me more about that?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I guess I felt left out. Sophia was finding joy and excitement in something new, and I was stuck feeling inadequate. I didn't know how to connect with her in that world." Sophia reached out, placing a hand on Ethan's arm. "I never meant to make you feel that way. I just wanted to find something that made me happy. I didn't realize it was causing you so much pain." Dr. Mitchell nodded. "Communication is key here. Both of you need to express your feelings and listen to each other without judgment. It's going to be a long process, but it's not impossible to rebuild trust and connection." As the session continued, Ethan and Sophia began to open up more, sharing their fears, their hopes, and their regrets. Dr. Mitchell guided them through exercises designed to improve their communication and help them reconnect on a deeper level. After the session, they walked out of the office feeling a mixture of exhaustion and relief. It was the first step in a long journey, but it was a step forward. In the weeks that followed, they attended regular counseling sessions, slowly beginning to heal the rift between them. There were setbacks and moments of doubt, but there were also small victories and glimmers of hope. Ethan began to see Sophia's efforts to make amends, her genuine remorse, and her unwavering commitment to their marriage. Sophia, in turn, saw Ethan's willingness to confront his pain and work through it, even when it was difficult. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sophia reached for Ethan's hand. "Thank you for giving us a chance," she said softly. "I know it hasn't been easy." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. I still have a lot of work to do, but I'm starting to see that maybe we can get through this together. Sophia leaned her head on his shoulder, a sense of peace settling over them. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't going to be easy, but they were finding their way back to each other, one step at a time. The days turned into weeks as Ethan and Sophia navigated the turbulent waters of their relationship, anchored by their regular counseling sessions with Dr. Mitchell. The journey was anything but smooth, yet each session offered a small glimmer of hope, a stepping stone towards mending what had been broken. One chilly afternoon, Ethan stood at the sink, washing dishes. The rhythmic sound of water and the clinking of plates provided a soothing backdrop as he lost himself in thought. The kitchen, with its warm yellow walls and checkered curtains, had always been a sanctuary for him. But now, it felt like a battleground where he waged an internal war of forgiveness and trust. Sophia entered the kitchen, her footsteps hesitant. She paused at the doorway, observing Ethan. "Do you need any help?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced at her, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "I've got it," he replied, his tone not unkind but distant. Sophia nodded, feeling the familiar pang of sadness. She knew rebuilding their relationship would take time, but the emotional distance still stung. She walked over to the counter and began drying the dishes Ethan had washed, working silently beside him. After a few moments, Ethan broke the silence. "I've been thinking about what Dr. Mitchell said," he began, his voice steady. "About how we need to reconnect." Sophia looked at him, her eyes hopeful. "Yeah? What did you have in mind?" Ethan dried his hands on a towel and turned to face her. "I was thinking we could start doing some of the things we used to enjoy together. Maybe go for walks, cook meals together. Things that remind us of why we fell in love in the first place." Sophia's heart lifted. "I'd like that, Ethan. I'd really like that." Their first attempt at reconnecting was a walk through the local park. The trees were beginning to shed their leaves, creating a colorful carpet on the ground. The crisp air carried the scent of pine and earth, a refreshing change from the staleness that had settled in their home. As they walked, Sophia slipped her hand into Ethan's. He hesitated for a moment before gently squeezing her hand in return. They walked in comfortable silence, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant chatter of other parkgoers. "It's beautiful here," Sophia said, breaking the silence. "I'd forgotten how much I love this park." Ethan nodded. "We used to come here all the time," he said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "Remember the picnics?" Sophia smiled. "And the time we got caught in that rainstorm and had to take shelter under the big oak tree?" Ethan chuckled softly. "Yeah, we were soaked through. But it was fun." The shared memories brought a warmth that had been missing for so long. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. Back at home, they decided to cook dinner together. The kitchen, once a source of tension, became a place of laughter and cooperation. Sophia chopped vegetables while Ethan marinated the chicken. They worked in harmony, the rhythm of their actions creating a sense of togetherness. "Remember that time we tried to make homemade pasta?" Sophia asked, giggling. Ethan laughed. "How could I forget? We ended up with a kitchen covered in flour and pasta that tasted like cardboard." Sophia laughed along with him, the sound of their shared joy filling the room. It was a reminder that despite the pain and betrayal, there were still moments of happiness to be found. As they sat down to eat, the atmosphere was lighter than it had been in months. They talked about their day, shared stories, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like they were truly connecting. Later that evening, they sat on the couch, a cozy blanket draped over their laps. Sophia rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, a gesture that felt both familiar and new. They watched a movie, but more than the film, it was the simple act of being close that mattered. "I've missed this," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible over the movie's soundtrack. Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Me too," he replied, his heart aching with a mix of regret and hope. Their journey was far from over, but these small moments of connection were crucial. Each act of kindness, each shared laugh, helped to mend the fractures in their relationship. They continued to attend their counseling sessions, where Dr. Mitchell guided them through the complexities of forgiveness and rebuilding trust. One particularly challenging session brought them face to face with their deepest fears. Dr. Mitchell asked them to share their biggest concerns moving forward. "I'm afraid that no matter how hard we try, we won't be able to get past this," Ethan admitted, his voice heavy with vulnerability. "I'm scared that I'll always see Tyler when I look at you." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "And I'm afraid that you'll never truly forgive me," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm scared that I've ruined everything, and that we'll never be as close as we once were." Dr. Mitchell nodded, her expression empathetic. "These fears are natural and valid. The key is to address them openly and honestly, and to support each other through the healing process. It won't be easy, but with time and effort, you can rebuild a stronger foundation." Ethan reached for Sophia's hand, holding it tightly. "I want to try, Sophia. I want to move past this and build something new together." Sophia squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with hope. "I want that too, Ethan. More than anything." As the weeks turned into months, Ethan and Sophia continued to work on their relationship, both inside and outside the therapist's office. They rediscovered old hobbies and explored new interests together. They attended dance classes again, this time with Ethan finding a bit more confidence with each step. The fear of inadequacy slowly ebbed away as he realized that the dance floor was a place for fun and connection, not judgment. One evening, after a particularly enjoyable dance class, they sat on their porch, the stars twinkling above them. Sophia looked at Ethan, her eyes reflecting the night sky. "Thank you for giving this another chance," she said softly. Ethan smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on us." They sat in comfortable silence, the night wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of doubt and struggle, but they were moving forward together. As winter gave way to spring, the changes in Ethan and Sophia were palpable. They were more attentive to each other, more understanding of each other's flaws and appreciative of their strengths. Their home, once shadowed by silence and tension, now echoed with dialogue and laughter. The journey back from the brink had taught them that love is not just a feeling but an ongoing choice. It requires patience, forgiveness, and a willingness to grow both individually and together. And as they looked forward to the future, Ethan and Sophia knew that whatever rhythms life played, they would face the music together, stronger and more in tune than ever before. As we wrap up Ethan and Sophia's story, we're left with a powerful message of hope and resilience. Despite the deep pain and betrayal, Ethan and Sophia chose to fight for their marriage, proving that love is an ongoing choice that requires patience, forgiveness, and commitment. Their journey wasn't easy, but it led them to a place of deeper understanding and renewed connection. Remember, every relationship faces its own challenges, but with dedication and effort, healing and growth are possible. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If you found their story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Until next time, take care and stay strong.